My name is Lara KUDAYISI. I help people heal from emotional pain, trauma, childhood dysfunctions for a happily ever after. My story in a nutshell is that I healed from having a child at 19, 14 heartbreaks, 15 abortions, and a divorce. I have created a program titled How They Heal. Hi, welcome to How They Healed. On this show, we bring people who've been through pain, who've been through trauma, dysfunctions, emotional issues, mental issues, to come and share their journey with us. You know, the struggles with mental health and everything surrounding that. And this will help you get healed and go as far as you want in life. And today, I am your host, Lara KUDAYISI. Welcome back to How They Healed. Today I have an exciting guest. I am so excited to have her. And we're talking about something, special, something called anxiety, something called this depression, going through struggles, going through pain, going through loneliness, going through being tired of life. And I'm so excited that she has come today to be brave enough to share a story so that she can help people heal and help others overcome what they're going through. Guys, welcome with me, the delectable presenter of life, Simi Drey.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to have you.
Definitely. Lara, can I just say, you're glowing, you're shining, chai.
Guys, did you hear that?
Even this beauty is enough to heal the entire audience.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. So, God, Simi, if we had not met you before now, I know you, I like how you, all of that, so but if you want to tell us about you, who is Simi Drey? What would you say?
I am an actress, a broadcaster, television and radio, baby girl of life in training. But I'm just like I love to have fun, love to have a good time, love to explore, love adventure, and that's just me in a nutshell, to be honest.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Like you exude that baby girl for life kind of thing. And I really like that. One thing I liked when I met you was that you have this positivity that you exude, this enthusiasm, and it's kind of contagious. So but before we got to the positivity, I know there was a story. I know there was a time you struggled. I know there was a time that you were tired. You didn't even know what to do. So when was that time, and what happened? Can you walk us through?
Definitely. I mean, when people, like you said, when people look at me now, they see, this girl who flexes on Instagram, minister of enjoyment. But life wasn't always like that for me. When I was a child, I suffered from depression. Now, the thing is, I studied psychology, and yes, depression is a mental illness, and I have to bring God into this as well, because I do believe in God. I have a good relationship with Him, and even though it's very cliche, people say God, 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 for me, this is my reality. For me as a child, I didn't have any reason to be depressed. I mean, I was in a loving family. I had amazing siblings, no beef, no rivalry or anything like that. But I could literally be in the living room with my siblings and my mom watching a cartoon, and then a wave of sadness would come over me. And I'd go to my room, sit in the darkness, and cry. And this went on for years, where for no reason at all, I would just feel this wave of hopelessness, helplessness, and misery wash over me. And this was deep. Like when I was in school, I loved to write, so I kept a diary. And a couple of years ago, I went back to my childhood room and I opened that diary. And Lara, the things there were like, I want to die. I want to kill myself. I'm miserable. I'm unhappy. I had this obsession with death and dying, to the point that my teachers had to call my mom. And they were like, are you sure your daughter is okay? Because, as a child in English class, your teachers would say, write a story, tell us a story. Lara, all my characters in my stories would die at the end. And I was in primary school, so my teacher was like, what is going on? And I remember talking to my mom about it, but she didn't really understand. And she would be like, oh, pray about it. And the thing about depression is that it's sort of comforting being there. Like you don't want to do anything to pull yourself out of it. So the wave of misery would come over me, but I found comfort in my depression. I didn't want to pull myself out of it. It's really weird. But when and bear in mind, like I said, this started in primary school. So when I came,
how old do you remember? How old do you remember?
I can't remember how old I was, but maybe like 6, 7. That's young. That's young. That's young.
Simi, what did you think? Going back now in retrospect, you didn't think anything contributed to that? You know, like siblings, like your family, like being bullied in school? Were you bullied? Did you have anything that could have triggered something like that for a child that young?
I mean, I did experience a little bit of bullying, but it wasn't even the bullying that, you know, triggered the depression.
You're sure that you
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And looking back, there's nothing, I can't pin the depression to anything, because I look back on my life, and Lara, I've had nothing to be miserable about. I've had a very blessed life. Things haven't always been easy, don't get me wrong. Like we have struggled a little bit, and but we've always pulled through. We've always pulled through. But I'm talking about like as a child, 6 years old, I was having suicidal thoughts. I wanted to kill myself. And literally the only thing that stopped me from like killing myself was the fear of God. Because you know how they say the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And my mom had, you know, brought me up in the church, and I knew suicide was wrong. And I was like, if I now die, what am I going to tell God? How am I going to explain myself? Because I did believe I would face him. And that was the only thing that kept me from killing myself, because I was done. And this is something I dealt with for years, like this depression, this feeling of it's like stepping inside a hole and there's no bottom, and you're just falling and falling and falling and falling and falling and falling.
So what would you do when this feeling come all over you? What would you do?
I would isolate myself as soon as I felt that way, because I didn't, the thing is like, because I would just want to cry, but I had no reason for crying. I don't want to cry in front of people, because like if people say, what's wrong, what's the matter with you? I had no reason. And besides, when I felt like that, I didn't even want to be around people. I just wanted to be by myself, wallow in my thoughts. And I think that was even more destructive, looking back in retrospect, because being alone when you have these thoughts is such a dangerous thing.
Sure.
So I would just sit in my room, write in my diary, and it's not like nice writing. It was like literally, I want to die. I want to kill myself. It's, yeah, like I look back and I'm just grateful for how far I've come, and knowing that this is something that I dealt with for years, up until I was in secondary school. I think about maybe JS2 or JS3. That's when I finally got out of it. But I was only able to get out of this depression. And this is for me, like whenever someone comes to me and says they're depressed, I will talk to them and I will counsel them. But I always say, first and foremost, go and seek professional help, you know, seek professional help. But for me, what I found was that it wasn't until I actually wanted to come out of this and made a deliberate effort to, because like I said.
So let me cut you short on that before we get to that professional help and trying to willingly get out of it. You told your mom at the time, and what did she say?
I mean, I can't even blame my mom for this, because I mean, what parent would think that their 6-year-old child or 7-year-old child is suffering from depression? Because depression sounds like it's generally an adult conversation, you know what I mean? And even back then, I mean, I grew up in the early 90s. Mental health and depression wasn't even something that was openly discussed. It wasn't, you know, normalized. So, I mean, I would tell my mom that I had these, you know, horrible feelings of like grief and sadness. I would tell my mom that I'm sad for no reason, and you know, I don't understand it. And I don't think my mom fully grasped or understood how bad it was. Because like I said, I was just 6 or 7 years old, and you know, if a 6-year-old comes to you and says, I'm sad, it's like, oh yeah, go eat ice cream.
Yeah, because I have a 6-year-old, you know, that's why I can relate so much. You know, my son is 6, and I'm thinking, you know, if you come and tell me, Mommy, I'm sad, I'll be thinking, okay, maybe he wants something, or maybe he's, you know, cartoon, or I'll just literally ask him, but I will think it's something very trivial.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that he will be sad, he will be you know, and this brings me to my next question. You didn't think it was very hereditary, something like that, you know, because sometimes they say mental illness could be hereditary, transferred to children, maybe from parents or anything like that. Did that conversation ever come up at all?
I mean, I look back at my family, and my dad hasn't suffered from depression. Okay. My mom has always been like a very, to be honest, there haven't been any stories of mental illness or anything in my family. Okay. The men in my family have been go-getters, always on top of the game. There's never been like a story of anybody like reclining back or, miserable or not able to pick themselves up. So obviously my family has had difficulties individually, but they've always had that attitude, no matter what life throws at you, we rise above it. My great-grandfather on my mom's side, he was able to do incredible things in the medical industry, but in his time, he experienced a lot of racism. He even married a white woman, and I'm talking about my great-grandfather. So of course, he faced a lot of racism, discrimination, even when it came to getting his medical degree, which he got abroad. But regardless of that, my family has always been like, no matter what life throws at you, you rise above it. So concerning mental illness, I don't know of a time my parents or grandparents, well, I never even met my grandfather, I've just heard stories of him, but I don't know of anyone who suffered from depression.
It's the therapist in me that is making me,
of course, ask these questions.
It's so, hearing, it's deep, Simi.
Yeah, and do you know, the funny thing is, like,
how did you go through all of that?
Like, honestly speaking, Lara, I will put it down to God, because I look back in Lara, I wanted to die, I wanted to kill myself, and I was ready to. And I remember thinking, when I got through it in secondary school, I remember thinking, if it wasn't literally the fear of God in me, I would have like just offed myself, like I was done. Do you know what I mean? And I think that this is what drove me to even go and study psychology at A-levels too, because, and my psychologist told my psychology teacher told me this. She was like, most psychologists go into psychology because they have doubts or are dealing with issues themselves that they want to find to find the answers to. So I remember like going in psychology, and I was fantastic at it. I was going to study it in university, but decided not to in the end. I swapped it for media. But like even then, I couldn't pinpoint what had caused the depression. And the funny thing is, even though I've overcome it, and I'll get to this story as well later.
I need to cut you because we really need to go on a quick break. Because I want to hear how, a child being that deep in that sunken hole could now come out of it and be this, beautiful, happy Simi Drey that we all know today. So, but guys, we need to go on a break. Stay tuned so that you will hear the rest of this story. Welcome back. Before we took that break, we were talking to Simi Drey, and she was telling us how she was a child who was having suicidal thoughts. It was really so scary listening to it. So Simi, now that you're out of it, how did you come out of that? What was the journey like? I'm so interested in hearing that.
Yes. I mean, it was a while ago when I was in high school, but the first, step for me that I took to come out of it was actually wanting to come out of it. Because as I said before the break, when you're depressed and that feeling comes over you, it's sort of like, how can I describe it? It's sort of like a wave washing over you, and instead of running away, you just stand there and you let it like come on top of you. So I decided that no, enough was enough, that I couldn't live like this anymore, and I didn't want to be depressed anymore, and I wanted to fight it. So I started praying, because like I said, God has played a very fundamental role in my life. And I started praying about it and praying about it consistently, because even when I was a child in primary school and my mom had told me to pray, I wouldn't, because part of me still enjoyed, it's really weird, it's like a sadistic relationship you're in, but part of me enjoyed being miserable, even though I was miserable being miserable. But I started praying against it. And whenever I started to feel that wave of sadness come over me, I would redirect my mind to something else, sort of like, no, I'm not going to focus on, this emotion. I'm not going to focus on these negative feelings. There's nothing bad about myself. I am I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm beautiful, I'm intelligent, I'm incredible. I have so much going for me. I have a loving family. I have loving siblings, I have a future. I'm intelligent. And I had to keep on telling myself this.
The affirmations.
The affirmations, and trying to keep myself in this state of mind. Because the minute I would let my guard down, those negative emotions would come. But eventually I started forcing myself to stay in this positive state of mind until it became more natural, until it wasn't me forcing it. And I can't pinpoint the time or the day that this depression left. I just remember waking up one day thinking I haven't felt miserable in a while. Now the funny thing is, last year, I think for the first time since secondary school, I remember going to bed and I started feeling that wave. It was like, these fingers creeping upon me. And I remember that feeling of, just wanting to fall back into it. And I had to tell myself, Simi, you dealt with this before. Do not go back there.
So, but Simi, is there like a trigger? Because a lot of people who go through depression have a trigger. People who go through anxiety, they have something that triggers them, maybe some emotion or some sort of trauma or event that makes them, want to sink deeper into that pool. Is there anything?
See, that's the thing, Lara. And that's why, my experience with depression was very strange and very unusual, because I've heard a lot of stories from people who've been depressed. There are some who were depressed because their life hasn't been going the way they wanted it to go. Maybe they lost their job, their finances are bad, they aren't in a relationship, or they broke up with a partner. There's always been something physical, like something tangible, concrete, something tangible that they can hold, you know what I mean? And for them, it's about seeing this situation from another perspective, and instead of being a victim to that situation, realize that, okay, this is where they find themselves, how are they going to pull themselves out of this? I didn't have that. I didn't have any reason.
So even that last year when it was creeping on you, there was
even
nothing
that last
that
year,
made it come on
I
you?
was on vacation.
Wow.
I was on vacation.
That's so strange.
And I'd had a good day, and I went to bed, pulled up the covers, closed my eyes to fall asleep, and then just started feeling that wave come. The funny thing is, I have spoken to just two people who have been depressed for no reason, like myself. But the majority of people have something tangible to fall back on. So I wouldn't even mind going through extensive therapy to find out if there was a specific trigger or cause. But I am grateful now that this isn't something I'm battling with or dealing with. So even when I did feel it coming over me that time in bed, because I'd already trained my mind to shut it down as soon as I could feel it, I was like, this is not happening, not today, not tonight, and that feeling left, But it is, mental health is not something anyone should joke with. It's not something anyone should play with. And I will always tell people, seek help, professional help. I didn't seek professional help, and I managed to get through it. But for the majority of people, as I told you, when those feelings would come over me, the first thing I wanted to do was to be on my own. And that is the wrongest thing you can do, because you're leaving yourself to your own emotions, to your thoughts, and all these thoughts are against you, and you don't have any voice to tell you otherwise. But if you seek help, if you talk to people about this, and luckily we're living in an era where people are talking about this a lot more now. Back in the 90s, early 90s, when I was growing up and I started feeling these things, I didn't know what it was. My mom didn't know how to deal with it. She didn't even know I was feeling depressed. And it wasn't something people really spoke about openly. But now we are. Now people recognize when depression is coming upon them. And there's nothing to be ashamed about. Absolutely nothing. People forget that your mental health can even impact your physical health.
Oh, yes.
Yes, 100%.
Very much so.
100%.
Yes.
And whenever you feel like, you know, your physical health is bad, whenever you maybe have an injury or an illness, you go and seek help from a doctor.
Yes.
Likewise, if you have a mental illness as well, go and seek help from a doctor. There is nothing wrong there. Like, if I can fall down, you know, scratch my leg and bleed, and I'm not ashamed of, you know, injuring myself physically, I should not be ashamed of, like, you know, having issues emotionally as well.
Yeah.
And it is very common. And we're living in a country where Nigeria is stressful.
I was actually coming to that, because you grew up in the UK, and then you came to Nigeria, where, you know, so how do you deal with that, the culture shock?
Yeah.
Like, I would have said that's enough to trigger, you know, depression or something of that sort.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
See, it's all about the mindset now. So because of dealing with depression and knowing I had to change the way I thought, the way I viewed myself and my life, whenever, you know, negative things are thrown my way, I tell myself I have so much to be grateful for, so much to be thankful for. And I try and find, even if it's just one positive in that negative situation. And then I'm just thinking about all the other ways I'm blessed as well. And like, by the time you finish counting down a long list of like why you are lucky to be who you are, I mean, you start even feeling bad that you were feeling bad in the first place. Even like the other day, I got rejected for a job opportunity that I thought I had. Like, I'd already signed the contracts, everything. They wanted me, then last minute they called me and said, no, we don't want you anymore.
Wow.
And I remember like being very miserable about this. But then I was thinking to myself, look, Simi, fair enough, you didn't get this job. Doesn't mean you're not going to get other jobs. It doesn't mean that, you know, your life sucks or your life is worthless. You've had amazing opportunities in the past. There's nothing stopping you from having amazing opportunities in the future. So it's literally just about redirecting your thought pattern, changing your mindset. And the mind is a very powerful tool.
Absolutely.
It is a very powerful tool. So people will come to me and they say, Simi, why are you smiling? Because like, I'm that kind of person. I will literally smile for no reason. And I tell them that I have so many reasons to smile. I have so much to be thankful for, so much to be grateful for. And I try to live a life of like gratitude, you know, a life where for me, I don't see, yes, the world, yes, Nigeria has its issues and it has many, many issues. I'm not even going to like sugarcoat that. But there's also a beautiful side to Nigeria if you can find it. And if you can rewire your mind to see that.
Wow.
So
a lot of people will not agree with you on that.
They won't. But the thing is, like, this is the country we are born into. You know, this is our citizenship. Some have been lucky to be American, to be British, to be whatever. We are Nigerians, and this is, you know, because this is what we have, this is what we have to deal with. So we're either going to let the whole of Nigeria's burdens, you know, suffocate us, or we're going to rise above it. Do you know what I mean?
I'm just hearing, you know, how somebody has come out and then, you know, exuding this positivity, this wholeness, this I can do spirit, this, like, it's like you're an angel. Where did all of that strength come from? How did you get there? Where did that strength come from?
I think as well, it's, my family has played a major role in my life. Like, you know, the people in my family have been go-getters. Then as well, I'm the eldest child, and for all firstborn people out there, you know how there's extra responsibility on your head because you want to be that person to succeed, you know, to set the trend for your siblings. So I've had that as well, and I've always, you know, been that kind of person who's like, let me at least be good so I can help my siblings and then help the community around me. So that sort of drives me.
But is that not also too much pressure though? Because I'm the first child too. And at the point I'm like, I have to tell my parents that, please leave me be. I'm still struggling to live, to go and teach them. Because it's a lot of pressure putting it on firstborn to lead others. Did I give birth to them?
So it's not my parents. So it's not my parents who put this pressure on me. Like my parents have been actually really good in the sense that obviously they brought me up to be responsible, but they never gave me like a whole, like too much responsibility. And even me, like I acknowledge the fact that I'm not Superwoman, I'm not Superman, no Wonder Woman. I cannot do everything, do you know what I mean? but the little I can do, let me do. And if I can, so for me, it's not like, if I get to the point where I'm able to, you know, do the most for my community and my siblings, then great. If I can't, well, I've succeeded in many other ways as well. Do you know what I mean?
That's
in my own
so
small ways.
hear.
But that is sort of like a driving goal for me. So it's not something that overwhelms me or you know, it's too much for me. It's something that I'm working towards, something that I want to, you know, like it's my, you know, land of manna and honey and milk.
So finally, Simi, does being in a relationship, you know, or have been married, you know, contribute to this? Like, are you single or taken or?
I'm in a relationship now.
Oh, so are we
Yes.
saying that did that contribute to this glowingness, this positivity, this beautiful, beautiful Simi's mind?
To be honest, so one thing I'm very open about is the fact that I was engaged before, a couple of years ago, and I broke off the engagement because this guy wasn't the guy for me. And prior to that, I had always been looking for my other half. I'd always been looking for, you know, that man that was going to come and sweep me off my feet, where we were going to have like a happily ever after. But after my relationship ended, you know, I started praying to God, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to get into any other relationship that's, you know, just for the sake of being in a relationship. I don't want to date, you know, endlessly for no reason. Like the next person that I meet, I actually wanted to be somebody I can marry. I actually got a list of like things I wanted.
Wow.
I was like, you know what, let me be specific. Like, you know, these are the specific things I'm looking out for. But because I'd been engaged before, and because that relationship did not work, I knew what I did not want. But what I learned in that period after my engagement, when I was just focusing on myself, building myself, my relationship with God, it was that it's not me, it's not half of me looking for my other half. I realized that I was already whole in myself. And I know this is very cliche or sounds very cheesy, but it's actually true. Like I became so happy in myself, my relationship with God. I got to a point where I was like, I don't even think I need a man. I don't even think I need children. Like, some of you may not believe me, but you can call up my mom if you know her. And even one of our mutual friends, Pastor Wale, I would have discussions with him about how I don't even think, you know, I want to get into a relationship or a marriage because I'm already like, let me say 90% happy. And all my previous relationships had been stressed before. So I was like, why would I even want to enter something that would now take me down to 80% happiness or even lower? So yeah, I'm in a relationship now, but before I even got into that relationship, I was already whole on my own. I was already complete. I had everything I needed to cement that fact, to solidify that fact. I went and bought a cat. When a single woman living alone buys a cat, it's like, I'm ready to be alone. But the thing is, because like I was already happy on my own, I was already whole. When my partner did come into my life, you know, we're not married yet, we've been together for just under 2 years. But when he did come into my life, because I already knew how happy I was on my own, I wasn't ready to settle for anything that would take away even 1% or even 0.5% of my happiness. And I was lucky to meet somebody who did actually increase my happiness.
Aww.
But without him, I was 90% already, so I was good. But now I'm like, you know, closer to 100.
Man, I'm so happy to hear this,
Yeah.
because here we like to share happily ever stories.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
definitely.
so, and I hope, I pray that everything will work out well for you in the end.
Amen,
Like
yes.
you really, I like your, you know, enthusiasm about life. It's so contagious.
Yes.
And so thank you, Simi, for coming to share your story with us. It's so inspiring. You know, so guys, you've heard Simi's story. Look at where she came from. Look at where she is now. And look at how she's been able to get there. Her faith, you know, her family support, and how she willingly, intentionally tried to pull out herself from that sunken hole. You can do that too. And this is why we bring you this show on How They Heal, to show you that if Simi can do it, you can do it, and live happily ever after. And you know, I always tell you before I leave, that it is never too late to live happily ever after. Bye for now.